Which rule sounds stupid, but actually makes a lot of sense? During community service, we would have to go up to this small mountain town in a convoy behind our professor. He would have one of us drive and the passenger would have a walkie-talkie. He would do check-ins every half hour. You couldn't pass him in the convoy. And he would announce every single time a car was coming from the other direction while on the mountain. It seemed really stupid at first, but when we were heading back down, we realized just how small the road was and how fast some of these other drivers were going. He was literally putting his car and pretty much his life in front of us to make sure if anyone would get hit head-on or roll off the side of the mountain, it would be him, and not us. Wow, that's actually pretty touching. Crossing your arms and feet on a water slide. I decided last summer to hold my nose while going down the slide, and figured I'm a grown-ass man, I'll hold my nose if I want to. I bet I looked real cool punching myself in the eye. Once on one of those super tall ones where it's just a straight drop down, my legs accidentally uncrossed, and that's when I found out they make you do that so you don't get pool water all up in your vagina. I was at a medium-sized plant in Wisconsin about to do some support on a holding furnace. Before I am allowed to do work, I have to review their safety material and sign a few sheets. Kinda standard stuff at plants approaching this size. As I am flipping through the book, I get to the safety section regarding their melters and something piques my interest. Normally, they're pretty repetitive, but this page had one rule that I've never seen anywhere else. No water on the operating deck. All water must be in the operator's room. This includes spit. What? Spit? Why did it have to specify spit? So I asked the maintenance supervisor. Oh well, this is something you've gotta hear. We had an operator who liked to chew tobacco. Not really an issue as he kept his spit bottle in the operator room. Disgusting, but whatever. He showed up and did his job. Until one day, he decided to put the spit bottle in the pocket of his shirt as he did his job. At first it wasn't an issue, until toward the end of the shift when it got more and more full. You see, he opened the furnace to check temperature visually. As he bent over, it spilled out into the furnace. Boom! Metal flew everywhere. He died in seconds. His body was 90% covered in iron. The kicker was his family sued afterwards. They argued that the no water rule was vague and he didn't know it applied to spit. No recording devices, cell phones even in your pocket on roller coaster. I used to work at Busch Gardens and guests would get so pissed that we would ask them about phones in pockets and kick them off the ride if they didn't put their phone in the cubbies. But it's because when a phone camera that you're holding to record your epic ride gets dropped or falls out of your pocket, it has a high possibility of hitting someone, and guests have gotten seriously injured from it, and could even die. Plus, as an employee, it's a huge safety violation, and if I let you take it once I see it, I could get fired. Edit. I also doubt anyone is wondering this, but prosthetic limbs fall into this category as well. And yes, I have had to hold on to a few prosthetic legs and one arm while I was an employee there. I was at Cedar Point a couple years ago, and they took this very seriously. When I was in line for Gatekeeper, their newest coaster at the time, the lift hill would come to a stop every few trains and an employee would climb the stairs to confiscate a phone from someone. I have to imagine that those employees absolutely hated the idea of cell phones after their 10th climb up the lift hill before 11 a.m. The mattress tag, that which everyone thinks says, "Do not remove under penalty of law," it actually says, "Do not remove before consumer under penalty of law," or words to that effect. At one time, recycle mattresses were a thing. Companies would take old mattresses, remove the ticking and uppermost layer of batting, recover it, and sell it. Unscrupulous companies would sell them as new, and the practice helped the spread of bedbugs. At first, new mattresses were to have a white tag and recycled mattresses had a yellow tag. Eventually, recycled mattresses were banned and most thrift charity stores won't take them, leaving only private sales as the only way to obtain a used, but not recycled, mattress. Years ago, I was in the IT department, and the company had a rule that all the members of the IT department were not allowed to ride together in one vehicle to external events. It meant the four of us had to take two vehicles to go out for lunch, but it made it less likely the whole department would die in a car crash. I have seen other companies with rules stating all the executives couldn't be on the same flight. I used to work for a small company with about 70 employees. When the Powerball lottery prize would go above $100 million, the employees could throw in $1 to join a company pool purchase of tickets. One year, the employees managed to match every number except the Powerball, which was a $100,000 prize. About 60 employees were in the pool that week and each got about $1,000 after taxes. The company owner was terrified. He realized that had the ticket also matched the Powerball, all of those employees would have won more than $1 million and he might have lost 85% of the company's staff in a single week. From that point on, whenever there was a company lottery pool, the owner was automatically included in the pool. He kicked in his dollar. That way, if everyone hit the big time, he would win enough to get the company over the hump of needing to replace nearly the whole staff. Fun fact, the Wright brothers agreed to never fly together. This way, in the event that one died in a fatal crash, the other could continue their work. They did, however, have one flight together well after they had become successful, just for the hell of it. They also took their father up on the same day. The only words he was recorded to say during the flight was, "Higher, Orville, higher!" In some rock climbing places you can't wear your shoes in the bathroom. It's because you're going to be putting your feet where other people put their hands. And if you wear your shoes into the bathroom, that's kind of gross. It's illegal to put an ice cream cone in your back pocket in Kentucky, because people used to lure horses away with the ice cream so they could pretend to be innocent if caught. Is Kentucky real? No dogs on trails. If you're at a park or trail with a no dogs sign, please obey it. It's because dogs are scent animals. No matter what they do, they leave a scent for days. Sensitive wildlife will not come around if they smell a predator dog. Some will even abandon the area permanently. If you see no dog signs, there is likely sensitive endangered wildlife in the area. They must use that area as a home. So please respect the signs. They're there for a reason. TIL. I thought it was because people were a-holes and didn't pick up after their dogs, and who wants to step in dog's hit while hiking? Don't talk about the meeting with your business partners until you are out of the building. You have no idea who is listening in that conference room, or bathroom, or hallway, or whatever. Haven't seen this here yet, so I'll mention it in case someone else never knew this. I always used to wonder why they make you put your window shade up on planes in preparation for landing. I always wondered if it just made the cabin crew's cleanup job easier, or something. Then I learned from my boss, whose sister works for an airline, that it's so that emergency crews can see into the cabin from the outside in the event of a crash. Which makes total sense and actually reassured me about the whole thing. If a court sentences you to death, you're not allowed to have your organs donated after you're executed. But you're allowed to have them donated if you die in prison before your execution, as a result of suicide or natural causes. This might seem like a stupid and arbitrary case of bureaucracy, but if the state was allowed to harvest your organs after having you executed, then it would make them unfairly biased in your sentencing, since they'll be able to profit from your death. Now, if only the same logic applied to prison labor. One of my first jobs was working in a supermarket. We were trained that if anyone young-looking wanted to buy alcohol, we had to ID them. Fair enough. But suppose that same person comes back on another day, and you recognize them from last time and remember that they're of legal age. Doesn't matter. Still need to ask for ID every time. Why? Because if another customer sees a young-looking person get served alcohol, without even being asked for ID, they might report it to the police. The police will then shut the store down for the day while they review all the CCTV footage and interview everyone on the staff. By the time they establish that the customer was not underage, the store will have lost at least a day's takings, and gained a reputation as a place that sells booze to kids. The Monopoly rules. If you play by the actual rules, no money and free parking for example, the game goes way faster because you're not bombarding the game with a random, unnecessary influx of dollar all the time. Using turn signals even if there are no other cars around. If everyone was always aware of every car that was around them or who may need to know where you're turning, like someone making a perpendicular turn ahead that would appreciate knowing you're not driving forwards, then we wouldn't need turn signals at all. Even if you don't think anyone is around, that scooter in your blind spot would probably appreciate a heads up. More importantly, it keeps you in the habit of doing it. I don't understand why this is even debatable. Signaling your intention should be ingrained, just something you do rather than engaging in mental gymnastics about whether you should or shouldn't. I used to work in a fairly dangerous factory built in the 1950s. It's still operational today. I was around a lot of insanely long belts and rollers, moving maybe 120 RPM. Belt was at least 180 long. But the only bit of advice I got on my first day was, don't put your finger where you wouldn't put your dick. My first thought was, is that it? Surely I will have some sort of safety training or at least shown where was dangerous and what not to do, but nope. Still have all my finger, toes, limbs, etc. though. Had a guy come in to do a paint demo at the store I was working at, and he was telling us about a corporate rule that states they could not carry any paint in the back of the car. One of their employees had a 5-gallon paint bucket in the rear seat and was in an accident. The bucket took his head off. Every single time you see a warning label that is absolutely ludicrous, you know the reason why it's there is because someone in the past actually did that thing. They put the label there not because they give a shit about people who are stupid enough to do that thing. It's because they want to avoid another lawsuit. This is why so many medications have lists of ridiculous side effects about 14 miles long. They are legally obliged to include every observed side effect, even if it was seen literally once in a single case from 8 years earlier. My iron's instruction book says do not iron clothes whilst wearing them. Who tries to iron something they are wearing? In Canada, you can sell prostitution but not buy it. Sounds weird at first until you realize it protects the prostitutes from abuse while keeping it illegal. What if I just have sex with someone and then give them money because I'm being nice to them, not in exchange for sex? Sperm banks will not take sperm from a man who didn't graduate college. I used to think it was so asinine to seemingly say, only smart people make smart babies. But it dawned on me one day that it may actually be tough to market sperm from a guy with less ideal attributes. You probably wouldn't get a woman to accept a sperm deposit from a guy named Jack who never went to college, but did get Employee of the Month at Starbucks twice in the same year. Do they screen for other things? I imagine inherited diseases might be something they want to avoid as well, right? I work at a mill, and we have a no guns on site policy. That includes in your vehicle. So all the guys that go hunting, which is most of them, can't just have their rifles in their trucks and head out to hunt immediately after work. I always thought it was pretty stupid. If the gun's in the car, it's clearly not in the mill shooting people, after all. Then someone explained the reasoning once during an annual training class. If your boss fires you and you're pissed, a walk to your car is a lot shorter than the drive home. If the gun's there, maybe you do something stupid. If the gun's at home, many people live over half an hour away from the mill. The drive home will probably be enough to give you time to cool off and realize what a bad idea it would be to drive back with your gun and shoot your former boss. They totally have a list of employees that this rule was made for. In Moscow, you can get fined for having a dirty car. Though aesthetics are obviously a reason for having this law, it's mainly to do with helping the police identify vehicles. But why the entire car? It's illegal to not have a well-visible number plate where I live, too, but there's really no need to cover the entire car. It's illegal to throw away a refrigerator with the door still attached. Psychos would put cats and dogs in there, and they'd suffocate. Edit, and dumb kids might decide to play hide and seek and get stuck in there. Current face mask penalty in the NFL. It used to be that if the grab of the face mask was determined to be unintentional, it was a 5-yard penalty, and it was intentional, it would be 15 yards. Now it's a 15-yard penalty regardless of intent. Sounds dumb to punish someone the same for doing something accidental, but it makes it so that players are much more aware of how close to the face mask they are. If you grab that thing and turn, that can be really dangerous. I hear many complaints from motorcyclists about helmet laws, but the reality of the helmet law is that it helps curb motorcycle theft. When one is not wearing a helmet, they're likely to be pulled over. If they're pulled over on a stolen motorcycle, they're busted. Most people won't carry around a helmet as they look for a motorcycle to steal. When motorcycle helmet laws were first enacted, maybe enforced, in the 70s, my counterculture uncle rebelled. He glued black, shag carpet to the outside of his helmet. Apparently, it got the result he was looking for, but he could only do it in town. The drag of shag carpet at highway speeds is pretty intense. All the rules at a casino, both employee and player rules. It's mostly to prevent cheating, and everything done is because it prevents a form of cheating that has happened. Examples and explanations. One hand on the card, subbing in another card or marking one. Dealer can't turn away from game to watch the tray. All bets and cards dice. Both dice must hit back wall to prevent sliding the dice, as well as the tiny amount of dice control that's realistic. Note: we prefer them to both hit, but really any reasonable attempt is sufficient, etc. Many chess tournaments are segregated by gender. On the surface you'd think that there shouldn't be a difference between men's and women's ability to play chess, and you'd be right. The thing is, though, in mixed chess tournaments women are very much underrepresented. If you were to hold two gendered events, however, you'd get a much higher number of women in attendance. It is important to note that there is no such thing as men's-only tournaments. Tournaments are either open to all genders or only open for women. So there isn't really a segregation in a true sense that both genders are always segregated. They are not. Grandpa's gift rule: don't spend it all in one place. I disagree. If I'm saving up for a bike, you better believe all that sweet birthday cheddar is going into the jar. Do not commit any federal offense on school campus. Daycare. You know, the best federal offense is a good federal defense. All religious food laws created before refrigeration. Most of them still make sense. Refrigeration doesn't stop the steak dripping blood onto the raw vegetables on the shelf below it. If you put a raw steak in the fridge without it being on a plate, or something else to stop the blood going everywhere, you probably deserve to get mad cow's disease. Once I was at a theme park and an employee said to me, "Don't lick the mirrors. They smell like lemons but don't taste of them." I want to hear the story of that. Lemon-scented window cleaner. Is it that hard to figure out the mysterious backstory? Don't work on the Sabbath. I mean this in the more serious sense of not just refraining from what you do for a job, but don't do any of the annoying crap of day-to-day life. It seems onerous and outdated on the surface, but I think there is a lot of wisdom to it. If you're not accustomed to it, I find that it's surprisingly difficult to have one day just reserved to relax and enjoy life, free of bothersome responsibilities. This means don't pay bills, don't do housework, don't buy groceries, don't run little errands you just need to get done. It actually takes some forethought and planning to make sure you don't let the little annoying things just pile up for weekend work. But it is amazingly rewarding to feel like you just don't need to do anything for one day. I think it's actually a very smart rule. If you don't stop to really enjoy and experience your life, you just end up living day to day, week to week, with the exception of vacations. So, before you know it, life is passing you by and you wonder where the time went. This way you get a little vacation every single week. I don't work. I don't drive a car. I don't fucking ride in a car. I don't handle money. I don't turn on the oven. And I sure as shit don't fucking roll. No cut-off denim shorts or t-shirts in the swimming pool. I used to think this was the stupidest rule there was back when I was young. Who are they to dictate your fashion choices while swimming? Some people are self-conscious. Leave them alone. Then I got a job doing pool maintenance. Cotton sucks up chlorine like you wouldn't believe. Every morning I had to test chlorine levels with chemical mixtures. And every single morning, the day after idiots ignore the clothing rules, the chlorine had bottomed out. The point of the chlorine is to kill microbes that can make you sick. Basically, if you don't want diseases in the swimming pool water, follow that rule. R.I.P. Tobias Funk and his dozens of never nudes. Yikes, hate to be that guy. But I've been doing pool maintenance for a few years now. There's no reason to not wear clothes in the pool. Cotton doesn't soak up chlorine, that's just not a thing. The reason your chlorine has bottomed out after a bunch of human bodies in the pool is that it's being actively used. See, chlorine is a sanitizer that will destroy itself in the process of destroying basically anything alive. Literally, chlorine is an indiscriminate neutralizer. So when you've got a pool full of body oils, piss, yuck, but it's a reality. On top of intense UV radiation, you're not going to have proper chlorine levels in the morning. That is why we are constantly pumping 0.5-2 ppm of chlorine into a pool a day. It's something that needs fed constantly. No hard candy at school. I had a second grade student who choked on a heart-shaped hard candy in class. It lodged in his airway. After he broke OT up trying to eat it, I did the Heimlich maneuver and dislodged it a bit. With each thrust he spurted out a stream of blood because the candy cut his airway. Had the most responsible student run for help, got him a rolling chair and pushed him to the nurse's office. She was not there. Thankfully, the school secretary showed up and she called 911. Thankfully, the local ambulance service was in town, having just come back from the closest hospital, which is 50 miles away. Thankful the candy softened enough on the ride to the hospital enough that the boy survived. Called his guardian that evening and she was so appreciative that he had not choked on the candy on his bus ride home. Or AR home alone. So, no hard candy in my classroom ever. I used to be a flight attendant, so many rules seem stupid but make sense in certain situations. For example, people are always pissed they have to put their phone, computer, etc. away for takeoff and landing, but the fact is those are the most dangerous parts of the flight. I personally discovered why they want them stored when on takeoff. One day we hit some weird weather that caused extreme turbulence. Anything that wasn't stored went flying. Shoes, phones, books, computers, etc. So not only did people's property get fucked up, but it hit other people and caused injuries. It was insane and completely unexpected by flight crew. Just put your shit away. Flying is dangerous, and it's amazing we managed to complete millions of flights a year with so few injuries, deaths. Also, as a flight attendant, not only could I be fired, but I could be fined tens of thousands of dollars personally if I let you ignore the rules. So just don't. Which rule sounds stupid but actually makes a lot of sense? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.